My name is Elise. I'm 24, and I didn't come here looking for anything, except maybe a little quiet. The cabin isn't much. One bedroom, a window that sticks, a little fireplace I'm still afraid to light. But it sits right near the edge of the lake, and at night, the wind brushes against the trees like it's trying to lull me to sleep. It almost works. I came here after things got too loud in my head. Not all at once, just slowly, like water rising under a door you forgot to close. Some mornings I didn't get up at all. Some nights I sat on the kitchen floor with the lights off, pretending I was invisible. My friends tried to help. They meant well. They sent playlists and long messages and offers to visit. But sometimes even kindness feels like pressure, and I didn't want to explain myself again. So I packed a bag and left, rented the cabin online without seeing it in person. I told my manager I needed a month off, maybe 2. Told my mother I was fine. Told myself I just needed time. Time for what? I didn't know. It's been 6 days now. I don't speak much, just nod to the mail carrier, thank the man at the grocery store. Most of my hours are spent under a blanket, drinking tea I don't finish, and reading books I barely follow. But there's one place I keep returning to: the library. It's small, just a single room inside what used to be someone's house, but it's warm, and it smells like cedar and pages that have been loved too long. That's where I saw him. He didn't smile at first, didn't ask questions, just looked up when I walked in, like he knew I needed the silence more than the words. And when I checked out my second book, he slid a folded piece of paper beneath the cover. I didn't open it right away. I waited until I was back at the cabin, curled up on the couch, listening to the lake murmur through the screen door. The note said, "If the silence is too heavy, I'll sit with you." No name, no number, just that. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like disappearing. I didn't go back to the library the next day, not because I didn't want to, but because I was afraid if I saw him again, he might ask something I wasn't ready to answer. Instead, I stayed in, watched the wind dance across the lake, and thought about that note. Just one sentence, but it had settled inside me like warmth, like a hand on my back when you don't know you're crying. I whispered it once, just to hear how it sounded in the air. If the silence is too heavy. And I realized that's exactly what I'd been carrying. Weight I couldn't name. Sadness without cause. The kind that seeps in when the world stops making sense and everyone still expects you to smile. On the third day, I went back. The library was quiet, as always. The light through the windows was soft and golden, like it had been strained through honey. He was behind the counter, sorting a stack of worn paperbacks. He didn't look up right away, but when he did, I think he smiled, just barely, like the kind of smile you give a bird you don't want to scare away. I walked the shelves slowly, touched spines I'd touched the week before. I wasn't looking for a book. I just wanted to exist near someone who wasn't asking me to be more than I was. When I finally brought a book to the counter, he took it without speaking. But before he stamped the card, he asked softly, "Did it help?" I blinked. He was watching me. Not like he expected anything, just like he was open to whatever I gave. A yes, a no, a shrug. I nodded once. That's all. He slid the book back toward me, and this time I saw it. The corner of another folded paper tucked between the pages. I waited until I was home again to open it. If you'd rather not talk, that's okay, but I'm here most afternoons. There's tea in the back room. You can sit. Just sit. He still hadn't signed his name, but the invitation was there. Not loud, not demanding, just waiting. And I think something in me started to lift. Not all the way, not even close, but just enough to make space for the next breath. It rained the next day. Not a storm, just the kind of soft, steady rain that made the lake blur at the edges, like the whole world had exhaled and decided to move a little slower. I put on my coat, the one that still smelled faintly like lavender and old subway seats, and walked toward town. I didn't bring an umbrella. I think I wanted to feel something, even if it was just the chill of water against my skin. The path to the library curved past birch trees and a narrow footbridge. Their white trunks shimmered with wetness, and each raindrop that slipped from the branches made the silence softer. When I pushed open the library door, the little bell above it jingled, gentle and low. He looked up. I must have looked like a ghost, hair damp, shoulders hunched, face tired from a sleep that never went deep enough. But he didn't react like I was broken. He just stepped out from behind the desk and walked past me, out the door. No jacket, no umbrella, just him. He walked beside me down the porch steps and held something out, a thermos. I took it without speaking. Still warm, cinnamon and rooibos. We didn't say anything, not for a long time. We walked together, slowly, in the rain, past the footbridge, along the edge of the lake. The world around us blurred and muted, like we were underwater or dreaming. And still, no pressure, no questions, just presence. At one point, I stopped, looked out at the lake, and said, without meaning to, I used to cry every day, and no one knew. His voice, when it came, was so soft I almost missed it. I know what that's like. I turned to him. He didn't look away, didn't offer advice, just let the silence hold us both. A long pause. Then he added, I don't ask because I don't need you to explain it. I just don't want you to feel alone in it. The rain picked up. He pulled his hood up. I didn't. I don't remember the walk back, just the feeling, warm and full, that something inside me had shifted. That night, I slept through the whole night for the first time in weeks. And when I woke, the thermos was still by my bed. The next time I came to the library, I didn't pretend to browse. I walked in, and he was already looking up, one hand resting lightly on a stack of returned books, like he'd been waiting, but wasn't in a hurry. I kept the thermos, I said softly. He smiled, a real one this time. I hoped you would. He gestured toward the back, where a small room sat half hidden behind a curtain. I'd noticed it before, but had never gone near it. It looked like a reading nook, maybe a break space, a quiet place. I hesitated, but then I stepped forward. The room was warmer than the rest of the building. Wood-paneled walls, a mismatched armchair, a lamp with a yellowed shade. There was a kettle humming on a low shelf and a tray with 2 chipped mugs. He didn't speak as I sat. He didn't sit across from me either. He sat beside me, close enough that I could feel the space between us, but not touching. And still, no questions. I didn't know you could feel known without speaking, but I did. We sat there for what felt like hours, listening to the rain, watching steam rise from our mugs, letting the quiet say what words couldn't. At one point, I whispered, almost without thinking, "I used to think silence meant I was failing at being human." He turned his head slightly. "And now?" "I'm not sure, but right now, it just feels honest." He nodded. We didn't fill the space after that, not with stories or explanations, just shared the longest silence I've ever had with someone. And when I finally stood to leave, he didn't ask when I'd be back. He just said, "There'll be tea again." That night, the quiet in the cabin didn't scare me. It felt like someone had taken the pressure out of it, like it wasn't closing in. It was giving me room to breathe. I sat by the window until the stars came out, watching the lake catch the moonlight. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't need to be fixed. I just needed to be felt. I didn't mean to talk about him. Not yet. But sometimes grief sneaks out between sips of tea and soft questions that don't feel like questions. It was late afternoon. The rain had stopped. I'd returned to the library just before closing, and he was alone, shelving the last few returns with sleeves rolled up and a pencil tucked behind his ear. He looked at me and said simply, "You seem quieter than usual." I almost laughed at that. Instead, I said, "Quieter doesn't always mean calmer." He paused, leaned against the desk, and waited. So I spoke. There was someone, a long time ago. He used to call me at exactly 9:03 every night, no matter what. We didn't talk about anything important, just being alive. He made it easier. I stared at the floor. When he died, I stopped answering my phone. Some part of me still thought maybe he'd call. He didn't say anything, didn't rush in to comfort or tell me time would fix it. He just nodded. Then he said, "My brother used to hum in his sleep. I still hear it sometimes when it's very quiet." It was the first time he'd spoken about himself. I looked at him, really looked, and realized we were both carrying things, different shapes, same weight. We sat on the floor behind the desk with 2 cups of tea and no lights on but the exit sign. At one point, he pulled something from the pocket of his coat, a tiny, battered cassette player. "I record quiet things," he said. "Footsteps, wind through trees, breath. It reminds me that silence is full, not empty." He pressed play, and for a minute, all I heard was wind across leaves, a creak, a sigh. Then nothing. But somehow, it felt like everything. I stayed longer that night. The library had already closed. The lights were off, except for the little lamp on the desk and the amber glow from the exit sign near the front. The windows reflected only us, 2 outlines sitting cross-legged on the floor like children whispering secrets at a sleepover. I leaned my head back against the bookshelf. He looked at me and asked carefully, "What would you say if no one was listening?" I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know, but because I wasn't sure anyone had ever asked me that before. I'd say, I took a breath, I'm tired of trying so hard to feel okay. I'm tired of pretending it's getting easier. He nodded. Then he said, "You don't have to pretend here." That was the moment something cracked, not loudly, not painfully, just enough for the light to come in. My throat tightened, and I pressed the side of my hand to my eyes. He didn't move closer. He didn't fill the quiet. He just let it hold me, the way the walls of this place had begun to, the way he did. After a long while, I whispered, "Sometimes I forget what it feels like to be wanted." "I don't," he said. "Not about you." It wasn't a confession. It wasn't romance, not in the way stories usually tell it. It was something softer, truer. It was someone seeing you and not turning away. And somehow, that made all the difference. When I left that night, the sky was clear for the first time in weeks. I stood outside the library for a long time, just watching the stars appear. And for the first time in months, I didn't dread the silence waiting back in my room, because I knew what it sounded like, now that he had held it with me. The next morning, I made tea without crying. That's not a big thing, maybe, but it felt like a miracle. The light came through the window in soft gold, catching on the dust in the air. The kind of morning that didn't demand anything, that let you just be. I didn't rush to get dressed. I didn't run from my thoughts. I just existed, for the first time in a long time, without feeling like a burden to myself. When I walked to the library, he was already there, unlocking the front door. He smiled when he saw me. Not surprised, just glad. Inside, I returned the thermos. "I filled it," I said. He opened it, breathed in. "Vanilla and lemon balm," he said. I nodded. "Comfort." He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't comment on how I looked brighter or how I was finally wearing my favorite scarf again. He just held out his hand, palm up, and I gave him mine. We sat on the floor again, but this time I leaned my head on his shoulder, and he let me. The cassette player clicked softly in the corner, wind through trees, pages turning, breath. I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, the words came easily. "I forgot I was sad around you." His smile didn't change, just deepened. "I know." And that was it. Not a grand kiss, not a sudden declaration, just the kind of love that arrives like tea on a rainy morning. Quiet, warm, and exactly when you need it.